All right, thanks, Dirk. I think we're right on time. We're kind of 4 to 5 minutes behind schedule, but I talked really fast, so you might get done in the next 10 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. But we really wanted to kind of talk about how to get started, right? We sometimes hear from generally customers who haven't tried out Syndeia platform. Oh, this is going to take a lot of time to do, and what kind of infrastructure we need? How long does it take to deploy Syndeia? How soon can I get something up? We've always been firm believer in an agile approach, not agile by like creating a lot of Jira tickets and kind of working on those tickets forever, but agile in terms of showing your decision-making team, your digital engineering team, some very quick early wins. We often brag that in a very humble way that you can get started with Syndeia on the same day that you get your licenses and your downloads. And my goal today in the next 40 minutes is going to show you that you can actually deploy Syndeia in under 10 minutes, and you can actually build a really nice scalable digital thread in the next 15, 20 minutes. So I'll try to do both, but I may do in the reverse order. I'll start with showing you how to build a digital thread, and dashboards come alive automatically as you're building a digital thread. Now, I'm going to take a one quick approach to doing it. That's not the only approach. There are many. So if you have specific questions, you can bring up at the, ask us on our help desk or tomorrow's Ask Intercax Anything event. But I'm going to take a path and say how quickly you can bring this up. So the example that you're going to use is, as I've used in the morning, the spacecraft digital thread, not silos. And any kind of system that we see our customers are developing have got lots of different data silos, requirements, architecture. Architecture could be in a Cameo or Rhapsody model, but I'm going to use SysML v2 because it's cool right now. There's some design manufacturing systems like CAD and PLM, software code, simulation, project and test management. And there's always the challenge of how do you define a system? How do I define a spacecraft? Because the data for the spacecraft is all disintegrated in silos. And that's where we come with the digital thread. You can actually build these digital threads really quickly to define what your spacecraft is by connecting different sources of truth for the different disciplines. Each discipline has their own source of truth, but if you kind of combine them, connect them, you can kind of get to see a Google map of the entire system. And that really facilitates this cross-domain impact analysis. You change a requirement and you can see the impact of the change downstream, or you can propagate information, or you can run your verification campaigns, as Christel and Fatma were talking about at JPL. And you can do kind of CI/CD type of approaches, right? Kind of automate that thing, as Greg Porter was alluding to in the morning. And then obviously you can track your cybersecurity and IP on there and support a digital twin. So the digital engineering workflow I showed in the morning was, hey, you could take the SysML v2 model and the textual syntax, you can push it to the repository using a standard API, and Syndeia can magically build this digital thread. And I showed you some navigation of the digital thread, but what I want to do right now is to kind of give you a glimpse into how I built a digital thread on one Friday afternoon, literally like 3 days back. I sat down and did a few mouse clicks, and voila, that thread came out live. So I want to show you how easy it is to build stuff like that. So the agenda for the next 40 minutes, I'll show you how to create a new digital thread for a spacecraft. We'll build a digital thread. We'll do some model transformations, which will move data around if you need to. You can also connect pre-existing elements, which I've done so. I'll show you an example of that. And then the thread will automatically get built. And you'll see the dashboard and the numbers and the analytics and those pie charts changing as we build the thread. And then once you build the thread, I kind of talked a little bit about digital thread exploration in the morning. I'll show you a couple of other facets that I couldn't do because of time crunch, and I'll talk about some of the query library capability as well. Two pieces that I want to show this afternoon are also this digital thread data science with Jupyter. Greg Porter talked about how having that Syndeia Cloud API was instrumental for them, and they couldn't have done anything that they were doing with the digital twin platform without that APIs. I'll show that API in action with data science tool. And thanks to my DevSecOps team with Brian and JP there, a big shout out to them, and Kavita. I'll show you like how you can deploy Syndeia Cloud in less than 10 minutes. So single command installation. So I'll do that towards the end. So let's dive into the demo. So the first piece of demo I want to show you is starting from an empty dashboard, right? You saw that dashboard was live, but I want to show you how I built that digital thread project that I was showing in the morning and what kind of transformations I did. So I'll do this part through a recorded demo because once I do the transformation, you don't want to be seeing models being transformed for the next 2 minutes and gazing at my screen. We can shorten this by kind of doing this quickly. But this was happening in real time. So you can really do this in 15 minutes. The first thing I do is to go to the web dashboard and create a new digital thread project. I can also do it from the client dashboard, but I did it here. I give it a name to the digital thread project. I give it a description to my new digital thread project. And remember, this is the container that's going to be housing all those relationships that we're going to build across and how transformations will work. We'll give it a key, which is an alphanumeric thing. You can see a dashboard right now, which has 0 count. So there's this digital thread project is freshly created. It has got no relations right now. There is no data coming from any different repository that we have. There are no projects and no artifacts. There's 0 relations. There's actually nothing to display, right? It's plain empty. And we want to make this live. And you can see the reports are showing nothing, right? There's nothing in the report. There are no baselines established. The Explore tab shows no relations, right? So nothing actually there. So what we'll do now is we'll bring up the Syndeia client dashboard here. And I'm going to use that because I have like some model transformation capability with SysML v2 on that one. We'll bring it up. This is kind of a similar dashboard that you get with the Cameo plugin, but we'll bring it up and you can see the same sort of, it's also connected to Syndeia Cloud server. And you can see some of the repositories on the left-hand side, the same thing that you see on the web dashboard. I'm going to make this a little bigger so you can see it. But I'm going to start browsing that SysML v2 model I was showing you in the morning, right? The same tree. It looks a little different, and I'll show you where is it different. But I'll go to my SysML v2 model over here. I'm going to pick up that spacecraft model that I pushed from the textual model. One thing that you'll see as I expand it doesn't show the relations. It shows a pure decomposition. So under that spacecraft structure package, you see the spacecraft part usage, and then same for the requirements. I can keep expanding that more. It's when I'm doing this, every mouse click again is making a API call to the SysML v2 repository that we are hosting for OMG. So it's live. It's not being cached or anything. If you change the model, you'll see the latest data. But you can see a multi-level requirement structure here. The spacecraft specification has got functional and performance requirement, which then has some child requirements over there. And you can see the same thing with the launch vehicle interface requirements, same thing with the physical requirement. And you see the tree looks a little different because, again, we're not showing the relationship explicitly. But what I'm going to do is to switch on the right-hand side to a requirements management tool. One of the use cases I want to show here is that, let's say if I started to model my requirements in SysML v2, and I want to push them to JAMA or AdoresNG or any other tool that is my requirements management repository, I could just simply drag and drop, right? So if I drag and drop this from here to a component in JAMA and hit yes, this will lead to generating a set of requirement structure in the corresponding tool, the target tool, based on it. Now, I kind of jumped over this in the demo. It took me like 2 to 3 minutes for this thing to transform. So I'm going to show you the end state, just so that you don't see and watch the screen for 3 minutes, kind of doing the transformation. But you can see an equivalent requirement structure, similar structure as this one has been generated in JAMA right here. I can right click on this and say, go to details. I can see that in JAMA, and you can see that requirement structure has been brought in. You can see that for each of these requirements that we generated, we have a description that has come. Remember, this was the document tag in the SysML v2 textual notation, which is being carried over through the API into JAMA, as it shows here. So every requirement has a documentation tag, and now you have the same requirement structure that's in JAMA. That's been generated. You can see that the structure is being preserved, and we just drag and drop to a component, right? Now, we didn't do any custom mappings here, which you can do in Syndeia, but here with SysML v2, the goal was to show you that. If I refresh the dashboard right now, you'll see what happens. Those numbers that start to change. Now I have 2 repositories that are participating in the spacecraft digital thread. I've got a SysML repository, and I've got a JAMA repository. And they're like 2 different projects in each of those repositories, across both of those repositories, one in SysML v2 model and one in JAMA. And they're like 22 artifacts. There are these 22 requirements that we have transformed from one to the other. Now, I could have stitched them together. I could have transformed all of them, which I did, or I could have connected only one of them. It's up to your methodology and how you want to linking. But in this case, I actually transformed because I want my users to kind of use a requirements management system for tracing that. Also shows a timeline. A blip here has come up on this time series plot, which has like nothing to display. So just one transformation or even one relation you stitch, your dashboard starts to come alive, right? You see 22 relations that Syndeia is now tracking between those 2 repositories and 44 artifacts. Let's continue. So now I can see those here as I'm showing you. I'll skip over this part of the video. You can also see that within the Syndeia web client dashboard, the same relations, the same predictive relations can also be seen, right? So you're tracking them here as well. And you can obviously see that JAMA structure has been created. Now, what we'll do next is take a step further, and I'm going to switch from JAMA to Jira. What I want to do right now is to say, well, each of these requirements can they become the skeleton for managing my work? So can I use these requirements to generate tasks in Jira, right? Where I want to have a workflow or a task for each of these requirements. I can track how the work is coming along for each of those. And same thing, it generates a task structure in Jira right from here, which I can right click and open. I can see the task here. You can see that those requirements here, I can go to the space of specification at the top. You can see those requirements, actually the documentation text that they had a description, and the description has come in Jira, right? And you can see that the structure has manifested itself as a task structure where one parent task is blocked by the child task, and if I go to the child task, it will be blocked by its child task. So you kind of see that requirement decomposition, in Jira has overflown as a task decomposition. But that's what you were seeing. We started off with textual notation through the SysML v2 API, and now it's in Jira very quickly through one drag and drop operation right here. And I can look at that hierarchy. I can go up and down that graph in Jira, obviously, through Jira. Now, Jira doesn't show that same kind of digital thread exploration within Jira, which I was showing you, and I'll show that to you again. But you can see that requirement structure is manifested as a task structure. Refresh the dashboard, numbers change. Now we've got 44 relations being tracked, 3 repositories at play, Jira, SysML v2 JAMA, 66 artifacts that are being connected to the 33 relations. Refresh on the client dashboard, you got 44 relations. So what's happening is not only we're kind of doing transformations, moving information, but that act of moving information is also building that digital thread in real time. And that's really key. Now I'm building this through a client application, but as Greg Porter was showing you in the 7 Tech Talk, you could be using a Syndeia Cloud API to stitch together stuff automatically or through a pipeline that it is happening while you're asleep, right? And you can see the stitching happen automatically. Now I'm going to move from Jira to Team Center. I want to show if I can take some of this high-level architecture, the spacecraft structure model I have, and I can push that to a PLM system like Team Center so that becomes sort of my way of managing or starting to manage the bill of materials, right? So I can go to the spacecraft part here, and it has that part structure decomposition you see over here. Spacecraft has an avionics system, which you had seen in the morning, and you can see it's got a communication subsystem, which has its own decomposition. I just drag and drop that to a folder in Team Center and let that transform. So it'll take the whole part structure from SysML v2 and boom, it's in Team Center. And I can see there's a version created there. I can right click or I can expand that and I can see the BOM structure has sort of been initialized from a SysML v2 model. And I can see the multi-level BOM created there. And obviously, I can right click and open that in Team Center and I can see that it's generated that BOM dynamically in Team Center from a SysML v2 model, which I can track, obviously. And what's happened is you can see shortly that Syndeia has again woven those relationships between the SysML v2 model structure and the items in the Team Center BOM. So again, live digital thread being built, models being moved, data being moved, everything being connected across these different stores. Refresh the dashboard. Now there are 4 repositories at play. It's a fun game to play. I really, it gives me high all the time. Just to see that I can move my data, I can connect stuff through that drag and drop operation or through an API that we provide and see the numbers kind of change, because you can see 4 repositories at play. We've got SysML v2, we've got Team Center, Jira, JAMA. We've got like 4 projects from each of those. We've got 128 artifacts being hooked together by 75 relations. The blip still shows the numbers changing because I'm doing that on the same day. I'll show you an example that Dirk has built of an unmanned ground vehicle, which has a nice timeline to it. And this one too, I kind of built this like over a couple of days. The first one with just a few hours in there. So that's what it's showing you. Let's move on. As we move on, I think we will see another drag and drop I want to show you, which is I want to show you creating a baseline. So I created a baseline for when the requirements are transformed. I'm going to go ahead to the dashboard and create a new baseline for the structure transformation. So I'm going to baseline the entire digital thread. So I want to preserve the state of that graph at that point in time. Now, this is a really neat capability in Syndeia 3.6. If you forget to baseline, no problem. You can go back in time and baseline, right? So baseline is really tied into the timestamp. So if you forget to baseline what the state of the graph was 2 days back, you can do that. So there are two baselines established right now. And we're going to go back to the client dashboard and change that Team Center to Windchill, try another PLM system, just to mimic a scenario where you're a multi-PLM house and you've got BOMs being managed by different divisions for different purposes, or if you're using Team Center or Windchill and your supplier needs access to that BOM as well, and they're kind of using the other PLM system, you can do the same drag and drop. Now we can see that in Windchill. Now, one of the things that you notice here is that many different versions of the spacecraft were created. This was just an intentionally to show you that when you generate the BOM, you could kind of take different approaches to doing so. You could sort of create, all the things in one, or you can do it purely transactional. So when that spacecraft part gets created, that's version A1. As we keep adding the child elements in the BOM, an iteration is created. So different systems might have different methodologies of how they want to get the part structure updated. In this case, it's using sort of a checkout check-in approach where any change that happens to that spacecraft has to be done by creating a single checkout. And so intentionally, this was done this way so that you could see that it's methodology agnostic. You can do either way, but in this case, it's kind of creating multiple iterations, one for each part or set of parts that were added to the BOM. And we are browsing spacecraft version 8.10, which now has that full BOM that is generated from in Windchill from the spacecraft system V2 model. And you can see the same kind of structure that you see over here, right? I can right click and open, and this will open up in Windchill, which I'll bring over here. I can go into Windchill and kind of look at that spacecraft version 8.10, look at the structure tab, and you can see the BOM structure in here. You can see the usage links and the references that have been created in Windchill 12 right off the bat from a system V2 model, right, to Syndeia. So you can refresh this, and I can see now that Windchill is at play. So there are 5 repositories right now. We've got that color wheel that was looking a 0 with an orange color has got more flavors, more colors to it. Let's do another baseline creation. We'll kind of do another baseline saying this is the part structure as we release to our supplier. Again, this is really a mocked up example, right? Kind of showing you that how easy it is to do these things. It is by no means telling you that this is a methodology we want you to adopt. Every organization we work with has a different flow, has a different idea about what they want to link, or what they want to move, and how they want to get connected. It's totally your choice, totally your methodology. Syndeia is trying to be vendor neutral and methodology neutral, that you can use it. Think of it as a toolbox, as of capabilities that you can plug and play in the way you want to. So that kind of shows you kind of that demo of using that. Let me pull to the live version of it. So I kind of showed this this morning, but I want to add like some more flavor to it. So that's that same spacecraft digital thread right now. If I go home, it's now got like 7 repositories and 165 artifacts. As I said, I built a few relations after that, and now most of it was built across like that 20-minute, 30-minute time frame, of which demonstrating to you. But then I kind of added a few more relations to GitHub and TestRail to show the connectivity to software code and test management, right? So you can see that graph right now. Let's go to the workspace tab. And then if I go to System V2, I showed this piece of it, so I won't belabor on it, but I'm showing this for getting you some context. If I go to that spacecraft right now, and I go to that spacecraft structure package and go to the graph view, you can see that I'm looking at the spacecraft. Again, I can change the name and the display label for that. But you can see that that same Team Center and Windchill parts are actually available here. And if I expand that Team Center part, I can see the BOM structure in Team Center right from here. Obviously, I can right-click and open this in Team Center, and I can see the same BOM. So once the digital thread is built and Syndeia is tracking this, you can see the exact artifact that you're browsing. But what about if we start the navigation from somewhere else? So for example, let's go to the requirement one. That's maybe much more easier to for you to view. So if I look at that requirements package here, I can see that the spacecraft specification that we have in SysML is linked to a ticket in Jira. We saw that in the morning, so nothing new here compared to what you saw in the morning. And that Jira ticket is linked to other things. We just generated that as I was showing in the previous video. Now I'm starting the navigation from a SysML V2 model, but remember, we've been telling you that this is a digital thread graph. It's a graph, which means What is a fundamental property of a graph? Well, it's got nodes and edges, which means I can start the navigation from anywhere. So I'm an architect, a system architect that's very focused on SysML v2. That's my landing page. I want to go there and start my navigation of the graph right from SysML v2. But that's not representing a majority of the other disciplines that are participating. If my project management team is using Jira, or if my software team is using Jira, they may want to start navigation from there. They can kind of navigate to our Jira integration and kind of go and look at that spacecraft project right here, or they can do a JQL search. So I can kind of come here and say, I want to search for an issue. That issue that my colleague showed me has a ticket called, there's a key called space one. Search there, the search will give me a JQL. I can do an advanced JQL search, or I can kind of look at the spacecraft project here, and I can right click and send that space one to the graph view. Again, I'm browsing in the context of that digital thread. I'm not browsing just the Jira repository, but I'm browsing the Jira repository in the context of that digital thread project. And here I'm at space one. I'm not starting from a SysML v2 model. But if I expand that space one task, I can now see that space one task, which was a spacecraft specification, let's open that in more details here, that right here is linked to something coming from SysML, right? So I've started navigation from somewhere else. You're a project manager looking at, oh, what does that link to? Oh, that's linked to the spacecraft specification, the requirement that came from SysML. If I expand it, oh, that's linked to a requirement in Java, and expand that, and then I can see, oh, it's got its own nested structure. So I can start my navigation from a Jira ticket this time, not from a SysML v2 model, but I was able to navigate the same graph that we were seeing before, but from a different node, right? Shows you that this is really a navigation of the same graph. You can start anywhere. I could start my navigation from Jama or TestRail or others, and I would be able to end up with the same graph. So long story short, it's a great demonstration of the idea that when you have multidisciplinary teams that are working in their different domains, their domain is the center of the world for them. If you're an architect, it's the architecture model that's the center of the world. If you're a hardware guy, it's the CAD and the PLM model. If you're a project manager or an agile manager, you are kind of looking at Jira. If you're a requirements management team, you're looking at Jama or Doors Next-Gen or whatever the tool might be, and allowing them to start from their source of truth for that discipline and be able to look at the relationships that are put within that tool, within that discipline, along with the relationships that are crossing the boundary of the discipline into kind of one digital thread graph. And no matter who is navigating and where they start from, be able to see that it's actually part of the same graph. That's our goal. And that's what we are achieving with this digital thread exploration. So you can imagine the Syndeia user, some of you may ask, who are using Syndeia? Well, it's meant for all teams. Every team that's got the data connected should be using Syndeia, should be using digital thread exploration. Otherwise, they're going to spend a lot of time in emails and tracking data back and forth. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you here. Again, if I go to the reports tab, you can see that these reports have come alive, right? It really had like no reports to display when we first started. But now you can see that the Jira ticket has the Jira repository is tracking those 22 requirements. This can easily go to 200 or even 2,000. And you see live reports and saying how many of them are in backlog, how many in progress, how many done, and how many by assignee. So I see that there's 14 of them assigned to me. Well, let's go to one of these requirements and see if I can kind of change the assignee. So I see like 14 assigned to me, and let's give Lonnie more work. He's got only one issue. So let's do that, right? So I'll go to one of these tickets that are assigned to me, and I'm going to change the assignee to Lonnie and see if I can do that. And it's done. Change the assignee, and let's see if I can refresh the report. And when I do that, it changes the numbers, right? So real time. If your Jira system is changing, I can see that 13 issues assigned to Manas, and they're like 2 assigned to Lonnie right now, correct? So this kind of changed the allocation of that. So these reports are live. As the data changes in those tools live, we're not kind of coming here and typing and generating these new graphs. These are being automatically generated from a live, scalable digital thread. The same thing with requirements. Something changes, you can kind of track status. If I'm a project manager, I would be coming in the morning for the spacecraft, and this one report, for example, can tell me where we are. How much work do we have to do? Where do we stand in terms of percentage completion? I'll show you another example with creating your own reports through Jupyter Notebooks in a second. But you kind of get the sense of that. Let's go to the another piece that I didn't have a chance to explore. If you go to the queries tab, this is a really new capability within Syndeia 3.6 where you can create your own library of queries. Stephen Kang is going to talk about that in the morning tomorrow. But you can create your own library of queries, which you were not able to do in Syndeia 3.5. But walking into a meeting where you have these library of queries automatically created, and with a single push, running the queries for the entire collection in one shot, makes it very easy. I know there were some questions asked about, well, Gremlin is kind of the leading graph query language. We didn't invent it. It's an Apache project. It's difficult to learn. Well, you can say that, but you could have adopters in your organization that could write good Gremlin queries and create a library that other users can run. So here I'm running a query to get all the relations, and that's based on digital thread, all 112 of them. Or I could narrow this down to say, okay, only run the ones that are in Jira, and boom, it runs, right? Live navigation is what you saw, but now how do I write queries that can run in millisecond time, not seconds or minutes time, but millisecond or times, and be able to abstract subset of that digital thread graph to give me exactly the answer that we want. So the digital thread navigation, the digital thread explorer is really great when you know where you're starting from. It's like exploring your friends of friends, which is our vision from a long time back. And why does social media have all these tools? Why is it possible to do that on Facebook and LinkedIn and not for the engineering enterprise? Well, that's what the digital thread explorer does. But then also the ability to kind of pick up subsets of the graph in real time with queries and being able to fetch them. That's incredible, right? Now, once you have a query like this, let's see, I can try to see if I can create a new query. Once you have a query like this, you can kind of run their own. So let's try another one. I want to look at how many test cases are being managed in TestRail. So what I'll do is, easy way to do it. I can see that a similar query here. I can kind of clone this query real quick and call it relations from or to TestRail. And I'll change this something here. Let's see if this works. And let's say TestRail repository type and create here, clone it. And so now I have a new query. And if I run it, I can see, oh, there are only 4 test cases right there, right? So I just cloned a query, or I could like copy a query here, try my query here, and kind of save it if I like it. And you can do that. Right-clicking on this and going to more details. I think I need to sign into TestRail. But that's available as well. So you can kind of navigate and build this query library yourself. Let's go to baselines. I talked about creating baselines. I showed you how we can create baselines. But I think I showed you a comparison of baselines in the morning. For those of you who didn't see, I can pick up one of these baselines like B1 as the reference, and I can pick up B3 and see how many relations got added. 62 of them added. Or I can compare now, which is the current time, and compare that with B3 and see how many baselines, how many relations got added or updated or deleted from the last time we established the baseline now. So these are all the kind of the 6 relations that I created after I recorded a demo, right? There were 6 that came up right there. So that gives you a kind of a quick preview. And obviously the settings can tell you that you can add privileges and you can bring in other users. If I want to add one of my colleagues, Anya, to be a viewer on this project and type her name, pull that up, apply that, and now she's got read privileges on that project. So very easy to kind of give permissions to your team members on a digital set project and go that way. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you is let's switch over from this to Jupyter. We talked a lot about data science and REST API. Syndeia Cloud's REST API is available right from here. If you go to the API overview page, you can see about the backend JSON data model and the API data model and how we map it from different disciplines. But you can also see a Swagger documentation for the Syndeia Cloud REST API. Talks to you about the endpoints that are available for navigating the digital thread. Those graph queries that I was doing was kind of hitting that endpoint. Syndeia's web dashboard, everything I'm showing you is being run by the same API. So we are eating our own dog food. Anytime this API malfunctions, our tools get affected first. So it's an API first technology. We build the API and then we build the capabilities around that. It's very different from what other tools and vendors may be doing, is to provide the API as kind of a thin capability reach to you. The digital thread navigation capability we talked about, the query management and everything is also available through that Swagger Doc API that you have. But what's more important is that we kind of generate language-specific clients out of this API. So that same API, which is a REST API, is published using a Python client or a Java client and Scala client. You can see the same endpoints that I was showing you are available as Python classes and methods in Python classes, or same with Java, or same with Scala, or other language, or JavaScript or TypeScript. So that's also available to you. And we take advantage of this fact because now, as you saw, Chris Turp and Fatna were talking about, they use the Syndeia Cloud Python SDK quite a lot in Jupyter or other environments to kind of do computations, take data from different sources, and kind of do their model checking and model verification. So I want to show you here a Jupyter notebook, which is using the Syndeia Cloud API. And I'm going to be interrogating the same spacecraft digital thread, but not from the Syndeia web dashboard, but from the Syndeia Cloud API through a Jupyter notebook. This is the kind of stuff that Greg Porter was showing you, kind of having behind the scenes. So again, my goal here is not to walk you through the commands that are being made here in the API. We have a Syndeia training to do that, but I just want to show you running this notebook. So I'll run this notebook. It's going to connect to our Syndeia Cloud server. It's going to then get an about endpoint. We'll sign in. Our token is generated after we've authenticated. We'll start to get some numbers here. So you can see some pie charts here. It's using pandas and plotly and leading data science libraries that you could take data out from the Syndeia Cloud digital thread that's managing and render it in different charts. Now, we have a much better version of this in the Syndeia web dashboard. What it is going to show you, what you're seeing here, is really like very less that you need to do, a couple of lines of code to kind of create your own pie charts, right? Create your own visualization using the top-notch data science and the AI tools that you have available freely as open source. Similarly, it shows you, this one is showing you how many repositories are there managed by that server. This one shows you how many total projects are being tracked by that server. This one shows you how many artifacts. But let's get to the spacecraft digital thread. All you need to provide is that spacecraft digital thread key. When I run that, I can see the different repository types, right? This is the same pie chart you were seeing before. Let me see if I can put them side to side. This is the same pie chart you are seeing on the home screen, which you're seeing over here. Just a low fidelity version because I'm not a big graphic designer, but I used Plotly out of the box to kind of, take the data out of Syndeia Cloud API, make one graph query to it, get the data, render it as a table, as a pie chart, as a histogram, whatever the visualization avenue might be best for the data. And then it's going to get all the projects from different repositories that are participating. So we see like one project from each of this repository. It's then getting artifacts that are coming from different repositories. So you can see the distribution, like 53 coming from SysML and so on and so forth. Same thing that you see over here. But again, look, this is happening by a few lines of Python code. Relation timeline, I can see that same timeline, the 3 points that you see over here. That's exactly what we are using. So you have access to the same API and you can do the same things. If I want to generate a Jira report I was talking to you about, well, I can do that right from here. It needs me to type my Jira password. Again, that speaks to the authentication question that through Syndeia Cloud, you're connecting to many different repositories, and each of them may have their own tokens or credentials that you have to use. Through Syndeia, you will not get access to any system that your administrator has not given you access. But here, I'm kind of producing that same color-coded table, different set of colors, though, of all the Jira tickets that are connected as part of that spacecraft digital thread. They are colored by the status column. I've decided that, okay, in progress will be orange and done is green, and the ones that are in the backlog are kind of in the BIS color. But I could, plot it by users or assignees or reporter as well. And in there is a ticket that is just assigned Lonnie that made that pie chart change. If I want to track like the completion metrics, I can see another pie chart saying 33.3% of my issues, 1/3 are done and 2/3 are kind of in progress. Same thing for JAMA as well. If I wanted to kind of get the data out of JAMA and kind of show you, again, I'm being asked by Syndeia to say, hey, type in your JAMA password, right? You can't run this. And so it creates a table of all those requirements that are coming from JAMA that are part of the digital thread, and then a pie chart that goes along with it. So you probably get a sense of, going from nothing to sort of real life dashboards, in a really short amount of time. Now, I also get to hear, and our DevOps team often gets paid for this. Like, okay, how long was going to help us deploy Syndeia? Or IT guy is working on many projects. I want to show you how quick and easy it is. So thanks to Brian and Kavita to record this video. Let's see the timestamp it is. So it's September 24th which is today, by the way. So Brian actually recorded this just before this presentation to show you how quick it was. So he actually did a deployment pretty much while Dirk was talking, right? He basically started from nothing and has a full Syndeia Cloud deployment up and running in less than 10 minutes. So you can see it's 9:24, September 24th at 2:04, and I'll revisit the timestamp when this video finishes. But it's a single command that he's going to type to start the deployment. What it is doing is it's actually going and downloading. It's going to download Cassandra. It's going to download Janus Graph, the graph database. It's going to download some of the other infrastructure components. You're starting from just the Syndeia Cloud installer that we've given you. So it's actually downloading a lot of the infrastructure components. So if I look at the actual time it would take to, after you've done the download, to actually install Syndeia and get the microservices up and running, it's going to be like 5 minutes probably. Most of the time it's being taken to kind of downloading that data. And it's downloading right now. I'm going to maybe skip forward to the different stages of this. You can see that he's trying to unpack that. But this is all being done by the same command. So the command he's typed everything is just automatically happening. It's deploying the databases. It's deploying the microservices. It's getting them up and running. And we'll just fast forward this a little bit to look at some of the things. It's doing verification check if the ports are open. It's unzipping the microservices and starting to deploy them. You can see here the JAMA integration or Jira integration or Artifactory integration, all kind of going live right now. And just verifying their port numbers that they're running slowly. And I think at this point, Brian does a status command to just see if the services are all up, and he's getting an active, let me pause this, you can get an active running through a system check command to see if that services are up and running. Fast forward that, and let's just look at the timestamp right now, okay? The last time he typed the command. So, okay, here, September 24th, 14:12. Remember we talked it started at 14:05? That's like 7 minutes. It took one command 7 minutes to download all the infrastructure databases for Syndeia Cloud onto a server machine, which is provisioned. And it took 7 minutes to deploy that and run a command to kind of check the status of all the microservices. 7 minutes, right? And then if you fast forward it, he goes to the URL where he's deployed it, and he's able to sign in through an administrator and get to a dashboard, ready to go. Zero project, zero relations. This is kind of the similar state I started my demo and saying I'm creating it. Now you can go and create a first digital thread project, just like I did, right? So it took you like 7 to 8 minutes to deploy this. So let's say 10 minutes to be kind of give and take, 10 minutes to deploy this. And another 10 minutes if you got the infrastructure to kind of weave that digital thread. And you've got a spaced out digital thread up and running within 30 to 40 minutes. That is incredible. And this process is going to get better. We're going to talk as part of a roadmap tomorrow, how we're going to make Kubernetes Helm charts available for you to kind of deploy this in a distributed environment. But Syndeia is cloud native product. It's designed as microservices that can be deployed separately in a fully containerized environment. We've done some homework here, we've done some work here, we'll show that tomorrow. But you can see the speed of doing this. So if your administrator is telling you that Syndeia is too hard to deploy, please talk to us. We can assure you we can help you deploy within a day. Now, I understand in real IT environments, there are certain things with firewalls and provisioning machines, and that's all given. But once you've got a machine provisioned, after you've gone through your acquisition process and your approval process, you've got a right machine provision, the amount of time it would take you would be probably an hour. I mean, you can do it in 10 minutes, but let's just say an hour. And our team is on standby to assist you. You can really get up and running that same hour and you can start using Syndeia. So with that, I'll stop. I just want to mention a couple of other things before I really stop talking completely. But Dirk mentioned this. I couldn't emphasize it more, but if you go to the user guide here, Syndeia's documentation is publicly available. All of the users can see this. Any of our competitors can see this. We welcome them to see it. But It's got 200 plus tutorials with videos and hands-on step-by-step instructions available. Any part of what I was showing you, like if you go to the Syndeia Cloud web dashboard and you go to the user guide and you want to see how to use the digital thread project dashboard, how to use each tab on that dashboard, what it is showing you, what it means, it's all documented here. How to build new queries yourself, how to create your own query library, how to get those reports up and running. It's all available, publicly available. You can see the same pie charts I was showing you. Um, there are tutorials for each of these that, thanks to Dirk, he's kind of assembled them over the years. But there's an incredible amount of work that has gone into to not only assemble that user guide, but also like demonstration videos that show you how to do this. So you can, if you're if you want to read and learn, that's available through the user guide. If you want to watch and learn, you can use the videos. But you can really get started very quickly. And our team, as Dirk was mentioning, is on standby. We are available on our help desk day in, day out to kind of answer your questions and make sure that you could have a smooth start to your digital thread journey. So hopefully that allows you to look at Syndeia. Now, a couple of things I want to mention that tomorrow at a roadmap talk, we'll talk about digital pipelines. We'll talk about these model transformation technology, how we're taking it from sort of the client mode to make it fully functional. We have people who are doing this through their own pipelines, from anything to anything using our API. You can take data from one tool and push it to another tool yourself. We have done a lot of these pipelines with out-of-the-box CI/CD engines like Jenkins or Apache Airflow or GitHub that you could use in the Cloud API to run those notebooks I was showing you on a pipeline or move information from one to the other. For example, taking a sort of requirements in Java, not SysML 2 but requirements in Java or DOORs, and push them to Jira tickets and update them as things progress. We'll talk a little bit about where we stand on that. And so if you're watching this and you want to learn more about where we're going with Syndeia, especially after the talks today, please do attend the afternoon presentation tomorrow on Syndeia roadmap and planned capabilities. With that, I'll stop. And Lonnie, I will pass on to you because I think you are the closing act for today and also may help us with any questions.